Hi, welcome to Pivotal Moments. I'm your host, Kristen Messerly. On each episode, I interview high-powered leaders, executives, and innovators on their powerful stories, life before success, and ways that they're challenging the status quo. In this episode, I'm interviewing one of my favorite people, Dave Savage. He is the co-founder and CEO of Mortgage Coach. He's also a longtime mentor and very good friend of mine. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear from him. Okay, Dave, thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here, and I'm fired up about the conversation.
Yeah, you're my first tech interview, so I'm so excited for you to be here. My first question for you, and I've heard this story many times, but would love for you to share. Tell me a little bit about your story of starting Mortgage Coach and what that moment was for you when you were like, oh, this is going to be a business.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first did it, I don't know that, hey, it's going to be a business. It was more of, I guess they call it nowadays, a side gig. But I was a loan officer. I was a pretty successful loan officer. I got asked to speak at Sales Mastery. I think it was 1997, maybe. And at the same time, I was innovating with, I call it the total cost analysis, with this presentation for consumers that was more than a fee worksheet. Like I had built my whole business practice around my advice makes a difference. And I wanted to be able to like say that to a family, say that to some type of referral partner, and then like, hey, my advice makes a difference. Let me show you. And so I'd built my practice around that. And the journey was I wanted to be more than an Excel spreadsheet. And I'd actually partnered with Greg Wexler, who became my co-founder, and said, hey, Greg, can you create this thing that makes it easy to do total cost analysis? And he's like, Dave, yeah, that's going to be about 20 grand. And I'm like, okay, I made a lot of money. I'm like, we can make that happen. Let's do it. And so he made version 1 of Mortgage Coach. And I was like, ugh. I mean, it's good, but I literally want something so easy that I could literally bring a waiter or waitress into the business, teach them some questions to ask, and they could just make this total cost analysis thing. He's like, Dave, that's going to be like 100 grand. And I was like, ooh, that's a lot. And then I had this light bulb moment where I'm going to be on the stage at Sales Mastery and we could sell this and people would want it. And I'm like, hey, handshake deal. Let's do this. I promise you'll get the 100 grand, even if I have to pay you, but I'll tell my story and I'll, show this TCA thing, total cost analysis. We kind of came up last minute with the name Mortgage Coach. There's a whole story on that. And I told my story from stage, and I think it was definitely over 100. I don't know if it was 108 or 118 people followed me off stage and paid us $995 a piece, and it was $100,000 day. And I was like, this might become a business,
So good. I love that.
That was fun.
I have been a longtime supporter of Mortgage Coach, as soon as we met and I learned what it does and all that kind of stuff. But it's funny, whenever I was just going through the home buying process myself, and I know we've talked about this before, but it was just such a powerful tool. And I think whenever I was going through it myself, I still didn't, I'd created videos for Mortgage Coach and the TCA before and all that kind of stuff, but still had never experienced it personally. And that was like life-changing. So I imagine that you have lots of moments throughout your career when you're like, oh, this is a crucial moment when things kind of, a light bulb goes off, I guess.
Well, we call them wow moments, and actually a lot of folks don't know it, but the name of Mortgage Coach is not Mortgage Coach, it's Wow Tools. And so, like when we incorporated, before we had come up with the name Mortgage Coach, we had like, it creates light bulb moments, it creates wow moments. And when we say incorporated, we're going to create a wow tool, a tool for loan officers that creates these wow moments. And then we decided to call it Mortgage Coach, but that's the whole game that we're playing.
Mm-hmm. So good. So what's one moment in the process of building Mortgage Coach that you decided to pivot? Like, I know there's probably many moments like that, but what's one that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, there's just coming out of the meltdown, it was brutal. We learned who used our software and who didn't, because if they didn't, or they got out of the mortgage business, they left. I had to let go of a lot of people. I had built my team to, I think I had 40 employees and had to cut it down to like 12 or 13. So, I mean, I was in a lot of pain. And the light bulb moment came, and I don't remember exactly what month or what year, but for sure it was before, I want to say 2010, 2011, when I watched Simon Sinek's Power of Why TED Talk. Like I remember watching that and just I mean, literally goosebumps. Why I think I watched it probably 3 to 5 times over a 24-hour period. And I journaled and it totally changed Mortgage Coach. And prior to that day or that 2-day period, Mortgage Coach was a sales conversion tool. And that was it. I built it to help loan officers, turn credit report pulls into conversion. It was a conversion tool. And what I changed the mission and the vision, it was to help families make better mortgage decisions. And it's like I had this epiphany that hey, we need to create a consumer first. Like every family, when they get into debt, they should have that wow moment. Based on my goals, based off of my assumptions, what should I do? And so it changed Mortgage Coach from a loan officer first company to a consumer first company. And I also felt in doing that, not only would I make more social change, but I'd create more value for the loan officer. And so now that was before the mobile revolution. I mean, the iPhone came out in 2007, but it wasn't like it just changed the world right away. But it was that, making Mortgage Coach a consumer first mission. And I think the goal I came up with, we called it a BHAG, is 2 million families a year. Getting a TCA would be the guiding metric, and creating a piece of technology that was for the consumer. I think it really served us. And that was a big, whatever you call it, pivot moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cool because we've collaborated a lot on speaking engagements where we talk about the consumer-centric experience, and we've written a couple articles, talking about that. But that's really what you built the business on, is that being a customer-centric experience from the beginning. So.
Well, not from the beginning. I mean, when we founded it, it was, loan officer conversion tool, but the pivot was consumer first. Mm-hmm. Making, being financially literate, getting transparency, cost over time, getting strategies. And that was a pivot. But I mean, it serves lenders, it serves families, and obviously it helps anyone getting into mortgage debt make a smarter decision.
So cool. So with that in mind, what is one way that Mortgage Coach challenges the status quo?
Well, I mean, the status quo is it's like the minimum. I mean, when you're doing a mortgage transaction, at a minimum, you need to give transactional details: rate, payment, cash to close. At a minimum, it needs to be on a PDF or content in an email. That's the minimum. And that's the status quo. And that is the majority of how families make mortgage decisions is, hey, I can get you this rate, this loan amount, and it's transactional details. We challenge the status quo because, one, it's a mobile app or a mobile optimized web page that can stream video, that's interactive, and it's really leveraging all of the power of a device and technology. So that's a challenge of the status quo. And then from a content perspective, it's giving more transparency. Let's give a family transactional details. We need to be compliant and to have a sellable loan, but let's show them the cost over time that matters to them, over 3 years, over 5 years. Let's show them strategies to get out of debt quicker. Like, hey, what if you paid an extra $100 towards your mortgage payment? How much interest would you save, and how much faster would you get off? So how much faster would you pay off your mortgage? So the combination of leveraging all of the power of a device challenges the status quo, and giving data that really is in the best interest of the family challenges the status quo.
Yeah, it's a very black and white experience to me. I mean, I had, my first lender when I was going through this process gave me the fee worksheet. And I just, when I got all of that, I felt so overwhelmed that I thought someone, I was like, I should know what's in that, but I felt like I couldn't even read it, but I was just overwhelmed and stressed, but then whenever I had a loan officer give me a TCA, it was just so relieving. I felt empowered, and I don't know, it's an emotional difference,
Well, and also, the transaction gives you some details around the transaction, but when, it's like you have money in the bank and am I better off putting this much down, that much down? Am I better off keeping all my money in the bank and earning interest? There were so many data points because I remember when you were doing this
Yeah.
that didn't like that transactional detail was just like one spoke on a wheel. And I
Yeah.
don't know too many wheels that have one spoke. Most wheels, in order to work, they have spokes. And the total cost analysis and our whole philosophy is you need to integrate the mortgage decision into the family's goals, into their unique circumstances. Like, do they have money in the bank that's earning interest? How long do they want to have the house or the loan? Again, the status quo fee worksheet just leaves so many unanswered questions, and you really kind of like, okay, consumer, now you need to figure out how to answer all these questions. And a mortgage coach, that's what we do. We provide confidence and clarity,
Yeah. Yeah. And I always talk about how consumers consume information and the emotional reaction to money as well. That's a presentation I often do. And I think it was funny for me going through it because then I realized like my immediate reaction to anything finance related is pretty high anxiety, even though I talk about it all the time when it comes to me, so then being able to understand or like see it in that way was so I could respond to that in a way that was like, okay, this is logical. I can make a logical decision now versus my emotional reaction of like, I don't know, I can't trust this guy.
Right.
So good. Okay. Yeah. So my next couple questions are really around the visionary kind of where technology is going. You are such a visionary in that space and would love to know from you, what is your vision for the future in technology? That's a very broad question, but yeah, I know you have thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer it in a couple different ways. I mean, two things that we've seen happen in the mortgage space so far is we've seen a lot more competition and a lot more categories of competition. I mean, a few years back, and you and I put this in a couple of our articles that we wrote, it used to be like 4 or 5 categories of competition for a loan. You had banks, you had credit unions, you had mortgage brokers, you had independent banks. Now you've got dozens of categories of competition. Every real estate company owns a mortgage company. Platforms are getting into the mortgage business. Disruptors are getting into the mortgage business. Wall Street is going directly to the consumer. So you're seeing a lot of innovation, a lot more competition, and I do think that will continue. I think it's a question of time until a Home Depot or a Lowe's owns a real estate company. And this goes for mortgage and real estate. So everybody's going to be in the mortgage and real estate space, so that's for sure. Obviously the self-serve digital experience, there's going to be, people that have refinanced their house a half a dozen times, they're pretty savvy. And when you leverage technology, a lot of that can be automated. So are there going to be more do-it-yourselfers? Of course, the DIY or DIY community is going to continue to grow. I do think, one thing that we'll see a consolidation of is right now, families have a lot of different platforms that they have to go in to do life and to do loans and to do homes. There's going to be less platforms for the consumer, more unification. As loan officers, if you're listening to this, or real estate professionals, you have a lot of platforms that you log into. Got to log in here, got to log in there, got to log in there. You're going to see more unification, less platforms. I think the integration we have with experience.com is just like a great example of innovation today, but an eye into the future of tomorrow. So mortgage coaches, this rates, fees, video, streaming, interactive integration, but you click on it and there's data from experience.com, the most recent review. It's all unified, simple, and easy. And if you're a loan officer, you didn't have to do anything. It's like your company has these two relationships, and now your technology just works. So radical simplification for both consumers and users. And again, that's an opportunity, and it's a challenge and a threat. But I do think the referral-based local professional that leverages tech, leverages media, like this decade, we're in 2021 through 2030. I think it could be the best decade you've ever seen. If, again, you've got to leverage these tech platforms and you've got to be savvy with how you use them.
Yeah. So with that in mind, where do you, I mean, it sounds like my next question was going to be where you see the industry changing as a result of technology over the next 3 to 5 years. So it sounds like that unification of platforms. Is there anything else that, and also with everyone getting into the mortgage business, that's going to change things from a consumer perspective. Any other thoughts on how the industry is going to change over the next few years?
Well, I don't know how new this concept is, but because it's been around for a long time, that like that leadership is a good thing. Like, the better leader you are, the more successful you are. I mean, I don't know that that's a new idea, but I do think you're seeing, like, with loan officers, you're seeing more teams, and you're seeing that you're either on a team or you're leading a team. It's not to say that the solo individual loan officer that can do it all and just do enough business to not afford a team is gone. But I see that trend where leadership continues to be a differentiator. The better you are at managing and leading yourself, the better you are at managing and leading teams, the more it plays into you and your success. I mean, I also think this concept that everybody's a marketer. I mean, that's not a new idea, but I do think the era that we're in right now, everybody's got to be a marketer. You've got to be good at headlines. You've got to get behind video, and again, you'll just see that the folks that they're good leaders, they're leveraging technology, they're marketers, they're creating video, they're doing like you. You've got a podcast now. Always going to have a seat at the table. Always, regardless of how big the do-it-yourself community becomes, regardless of how much automation it is, if you're a good marketer and you're a good leader, you'll always have a seat at the table at the local referral-based lending business.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind as technology grows is like, we're using technology for that leadership in a lot of ways, but that is so crucial. It doesn't matter how much extra technology you have. It matters that you're being a leader with that technology and with your consumer base. So
yeah, and I'll give a good example. We do a mastermind at Mortgage Coach every Friday morning at 9:00. And this morning we had Jeremy Forcier and Deborah Bird, who's a great, social media marketing consultant in our community. And she was advocating that Jeremy every, kind of like same time every week does a Facebook Live and talks about advice. And that's just a perfect example where if you did that, a bunch of things happen. One, if you literally did like this advice show, you're a loan officer and you did this advice show where you talked about kind of like a family came to me before and after debt consol, before and after refi, before and after first time home buyer. And, one, you'd be a better advisor at what you do. And then leveraging Facebook Live, leveraging technology, you're better at what you do and you're broadcasting what you do. And so I just think like that plays into what you need to do this decade.
Totally. And you're building trust at scale, so like people look you up and they can see, oh, this is someone I can trust. I'm going to learn from, they're going to guide me in a trustworthy way. So
building trust at scale.
Yes.
That's a quote.
So good. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time. I love hearing all of your leadership, and it's great to hear about your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristen. Take care.